What is the best time of the year to go on safari? This is a question that I receive a lot, and that's why I want to make this video today, going through all the different seasons and help you figure out what the best time of the year is to go on safari. Hi, I'm Carolina Marie and I'm a wildlife photographer and photographic guide. I also run a safari company together with my fiance Craig, and what we do is help people plan their dream safaris. Because a safari isn't really like any other holiday, you have thousands of different lodges to choose from, so many different areas and countries, it is really overwhelming to try to plan this yourself because where do you even start? And this is why we started our company, Wildest Kruger Safaris, to help people plan their dream safaris that fits their budget, their wants and expectations. Because when I say safari, I think everyone has a different idea that pops into their head, and being able to figure out what that is and what you actually want to experience is the key to plan a successful safari. One of the most important decisions to make when you are planning your safari is what time of the year to book it. This decision will completely determine what type of safari you get, because the seasons do differ a lot. And as much as I could easily just recommend my favorite time of the year for safari, I don't know if that would actually suit you specifically. All the different seasons have their pros and cons, so I hope that this video will help you figure out what best suits you and your expectations for your dream safari. Since we are based in South Africa and do most of our work in the Kruger National Park, this is the area that I want to be focusing on. Other parts of Africa and even other parts of South Africa do have different seasons, so this is specific for Kruger. First of all, let's start with the amazing green season. This is approximately end of November to end of Feb, depending on the rains, because this is our rainy season in Kruger National Park. This is when you get those incredible thunderstorms coming through and just bringing everything to life. The incredible change that these thunderstorms bring can sometimes be seen just overnight. It is like everything just comes to life. There is noises everywhere. If it's birds or bugs or whatever it might be, it just feels like the bush is bursting with life. And it is incredibly lush and green. Sometimes the greenery even feels unreal. Areas that are completely barren and sandy in winter gets filled with grass in summer. So this is obviously when the migratory birds come to South Africa and the Kruger Park as well. So we have the most amount of birds here during this season. And a lot of them put on their breeding plumage. It can be everything from long disproportionate tails to red bright crests. Everywhere there's chirping and calling, and obviously you have the famous woodlands kingfisher, which we every year bet when we were here our first one for the season, because that is the sound of summer. I often have guests asking about the dung beetles, and this is the time of the year to come and see them. They are inactive in winter, so the chances of seeing them are very, very slim. And the same thing with your reptiles like snakes and tortoises. If you want to see the amazing leopard tortoise that we have here in Kruger, then you want to come in summer for sure. Same thing when it comes to scorpions and spiders. This is when they're most active and the biggest chance of seeing them. So if you like scorpions, then this is the time to come, but if you don't like them, then stay away from summer. This is also famously known as baby season, and a lot of people get this confused, thinking that all animals have their babies this time of the year. But it's actually just the seasonal breeders, like impala and wildebeest, for example. Things like your lions and elephants, they breed all year round and don't have a specific season that they have their babies. But this time of the year, all the little impala lambs are born and they are so cute and they are everywhere. Obviously, with it being green season, there's a lot of food available and the animals are in general very happy and healthy this time of the year. So if you don't like seeing animals that maybe look a little bit skinny and so on, then this is the time of the year to come and see them. When it comes to sunsets, it's a bit of a hit and miss. Sometimes you have the most magical sunsets this time of the year because the cloud coverage is just perfect and you maybe even get storms coming through and then the sun setting just in the perfect time. So you could have the most magical sunsets, but you could also miss out on the sunsets because of the rains and the storms or just overcast weather. I think this is important to mention because I know coming on safari, sunsets are kind of a big deal. Moving into more of the cons, in my opinion, is that this time of the year is probably the most uncomfortable to be on safari because it is the hottest time of the year and it is very, very humid. Temperatures will be around 35 to even 40 or 45 degrees sometimes. And for those who are not used to it, the humidity can also be extreme. And if it isn't hot and humid, it's most likely because it's raining. This time of the year, there is a high risk that you do get a game drive when it is bucketing down. And if you're in an open vehicle, that isn't the most fun. And from a game viewing point of view, rain isn't the best weather for animal sightings because they most likely will just be hiding under bushes and so on to get away from the rain. And talking about animals, it is also really good to know that this time of the year in general, it is more difficult to find animals, especially things like your big cats. Because it is very thick and lush and green, they easily disappear in the tall grass and it can be difficult to spot them. With it being rainy season as well, there's an abundance of water, which means that predicting where the animals are going is very difficult because there's water everywhere for them to drink. So they won't be congregating around big water sources, which they do in winter, and I'll get to that later. That doesn't mean that you can't have good sightings. I've had some of my most incredible sightings this time of the year. I just think it is more unpredictable. And for those who don't like bugs, snakes, spiders, scorpions, this is not the best time for you either. The risks of running into a snake or a scorpion or spider if you don't go looking for them are very slim, but they are out and about and the risk is there. However, from a photography point of view, this is an amazing time of the year because you can get such unique photos in the rain, and also with the lush greenery, it just creates the most beautiful colors in your photos. So it is an incredible time of the year to be in the bush. In general, I usually recommend this time of the year for those who have been on safari before and have seen a lot of the animals before. So if you're going on your second safari and you want a different type of experience, you've seen most of the animals that you really wanted to see, but you just want to experience something different and maybe photograph something different if you're a photographer, then this is a really good time of the year. Moving on to a bit of a milder version of summer, which is March to May. Some people would maybe be tempted to call this autumn because obviously we're going from summer to winter, but here in South Africa, we don't really call it autumn. We just call it end of summer or beginning of winter because we don't really have a distinct autumn. This is a good time of the year to visit if you want to experience what summer is about without the extreme heat and extreme bugs and so on, because we do still have quite a lot of the greenery left around this time of the year. There is still some impala babies around, but they're just a bit bigger this time of the year, obviously. And some of the migratory birds might have stuck around as well, so you might have a chance to see more birds if that's what you're into. It does still rain, just not as much, and there is some bugs around, but just not in the abundance as it is in summer. May is also a bit more of a quiet season around here, so you might be able to strike some nice deals or just have a more quiet time on safari when it's not as busy. Then moving into peak winter, which is June, July, and this is the driest time of the year and also the coolest time of the year. All the smaller water sources are drying up and left are the big dams and the big rivers that the animals congregate around. And animals are starting to have to move further distances to reach water, which essentially means the chances of finding them and seeing them are higher. The color palette is a lot more beige and gray this time of the year, which For some people it's a bit boring, but I personally love it. I think for photos, this just makes for the most gorgeous backdrops, and I really enjoy taking photos at the time of the year. There's also no bugs and no snakes or spiders around, which I personally enjoy quite a lot. From a weather point of view, this is probably the most comfortable temperatures. The days are about 20-25 degrees and often just clear blue skies, and you can just sit outside and actually enjoy the sun, which we can't really do in summer because it's just too hot. And then the temperatures drop to like 10 degrees in the evenings and sometimes as low as like 3 degrees in the early mornings. Because rain is very unlikely this time of the year too, you are almost guaranteed a fantastic sunset pretty much every single evening.
Something else that I get a lot of questions about and I thought is worth mentioning is when it's the best time to see wild dogs. And the thing with wild dogs in general is that they are very unpredictable because they travel really far distances. So it is quite a hit and miss. Even if you're going to an area where the chances are good, they might just not be in the area for those days that you're there, unfortunately. However, I do think it's worth mentioning that this is the time of the year that the wild dogs have their denning season. So this is when they have their pups. And if you hit it right and you're in an area where they are denning, the chance of seeing them is really, really high because they don't move far from the den. However, the opposite is also true, that if you're in an area where they're not denning, then chances of seeing them are next to zero. So my advice for you, if wild dogs is very high on your list, is to chat to people like ourselves who know the area and know where the best chance of seeing them is. And also, the more time you spend on safari, the better the chances are.
And then moving on to late winter, which I would say is around mid-August through to late November when the rains start again. And this is personally my favorite time of the year. This time of the year, it's starting to warm up, but the heat is not as extreme as it is in summer, and it is a lot more of a dry heat. By this time of the year, the bush has almost dried up completely, which means only the big water sources still hold water. And as I mentioned with peak winter, that does increase the chances of finding the animals. I also find that this time of the year you have the most incredible interactions between different species of animal because they all have to come to the big water sources and they can't avoid each other as much. And because the bush is so dried up, it's not as thick and lush as in summer, which means that you can see further into the bush and therefore also spot animals easier, especially things like your big cats. And when photographing these animals, I also find that you have less things in the way for your photos, while in summer there's often a lot of grass and bushes in the way and you can struggle to get a glimpse of the animal. Because it's so dry too, there's a lot of dust that get kicked up into the air, which I think creates the most beautiful sunsets, and it prolongs golden hour a bit. In summer, I find that there's a very short window of beautiful golden light, while in winter that window is a lot bigger, so you're able to get more photos and more chances with golden light photography. And there we go. That is the whole year and the different seasons. I hope this has given you a picture of what it's like to be on safari during the different times of the year here in Kruger. It's very difficult to cover all of it because there is a lot more to say about each season. So let me know in the comments if you feel like I've missed something very important, because I'm sure there's something I might have missed. And if you want more tips and tricks like this, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate all the support from you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.